The start of this band's musical career was just a brief foray with a band named after a Beach Boys song. Darlin' was a, unbeknownst to them, legendary trio of musicians that would go on after they broke up to form two of the biggest bands in French music history. Darlin' was an indie rock band consisting of three members, Guy Manuel de Homem Christo, Thomas Bangalter, and Laurent Plakowitz, the latter of which would go on to play guitar with his brother in the band Phoenix, and the former two went on to experiment with synths and drum machines, using a negative review from their past experiences as the other band, Daft punky thrash, to form the massively prolific Daft Punk. This is their 1996 studio debut album, Homework. Released through Virgin Records, this was originally conceived as a collection of singles, but after producing a good number of tracks over a 5-month period, the duo decided they could arrange them very quickly and cheaply and spontaneously into a record. It was a record that had such massive mainstream success, it brought a ton of eyes to the French house scene. One of the most interesting aspects of the band is that they always perform behind a mask. They always show up their public appearances. You don't know who the people behind the mask really look like, besides a few pictures here and there. There's actually a kind of blurry black and white picture in the... I'll show you. Ah! Gotta do my homework. That's one of the few pictures of the guys. I don't know if you can see that wherever the focus is, but that's basically all you get. They've managed to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of mainstream success, of having people follow you around, know who you are, know where you live, bother you in your private time. Also proving that you don't just need pretty faces to sell good music. Way ahead of their time in terms of wearing a mask, but I'm going to leave it down for the rest of this video for my comfort and for your understanding, and I don't really have a need for a mask right now. I'm kind of in the middle of the woods nowhere with nobody else around me. So today is actually the 21st anniversary of their accident that caused their mechanical affliction. According to an animated short they did with Cartoon Network, they were working on a sampler, and exactly 9:09 a.m. on September 9th, 1999 it exploded, and when they woke up they were robots. I haven't looked into how official it might be, but it might as well be Daft Punk Day or Daft Punk Week, so put the house in house music and stay inside and jam out to these fantastic electronic beats. Homework starts out strong with Daft in direct, pulling the listener in with deeply distorted looping vocals that clear up and is joined by a big groovy beat and laser synth additions. One of the shortest but one of the best here. WPDK 83.7 FM is a quick interlude that serves as a transition between the songs here. The letters might signify the band name and the album title, but I can't even start to guess what the numbers might mean. You're brought to the outside of a massive house party with hustle and bustle of people going around, street noises, a siren comes by. You can just make out the muffled bass of Revolution 909. After the cops show up and tell everyone to turn off the music and go home, you step inside and get totally enveloped by a driving club beat. Defunk was one of the very first songs Daft Punk ever made and was originally released as a single through Soma Records. Its slow-growing popularity was probably one of the main reasons it was such a bidding war to sign this band to a major label. It's a mid-tempo electro-pop beast that is built off the back of some great drum samples. Starts out with a simple, filtered synth line that feels unbearably familiar, joined by those previously mentioned drum samples, and then this uneasy acid bass line comes in and solidifies all the things that make up a classic Daft Punk track. Moving over to a piece that has the same name as the ex-bandmate's new band, Phoenix. This one speeds up, but ultimately feels long-winded and fairly empty, a little too wide open, I guess. Soothing crashing waves on a shoreline and reverby synths introduce you to Fresh, a track whose sample wasn't discovered for 20 years until some Redditor found out that it was a 1981 disco track by Viola Wills, If You Leave Me Now. With a similar tempo to the funk, but without that acid, eerie bass line, it feels a lot more wavy and flowy. The biggest hit of the album, Around the World, somehow after this singular repetition of Around the World over 40 times, 7 minutes long this song is, doesn't even get tiring. It's a dangerously catchy, anthemic electro-funk piece that absolutely bops the whole time. Another track that comes in at over 7 minutes, Rolling and Scratching, just doesn't quite have the staying power of the previous number. It builds slowly, sort of generically. Maybe at the point of its release it wasn't as generic as it is now, but it turns into this frustrated electronic screaming that is a back and forth, a push and a pull, but it's such an ear beating that I don't really enjoy much of the end of this one. Teachers is Guy Manuel and Thomas listing their many musical influences over a funky beat. A huge list of artists, but ultimately this song isn't doing a whole lot other than a shout out to all these fun DJs and artists. It just allows for this list to exist. Maybe don't put it in the middle of the album. Maybe it's a good time to take a break, but ultimately there's a lot more electronic music to go. I guess it really does allow for the track High Fidelity right after it to pop off pretty well, using a pretty abstract sample from Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are. This one rolls along really nicely and is probably my favorite on the whole back half of the album. An electronic dance song titled Rock and Roll. It sort of feels like an intense version of Rolling and Scratching, but using more traditional instrumentation, such as like a hand clap and a bass line that makes you feel like the band's doing crowd work, a drum that keeps the thing rolling along, and the sample they use sort of sounds like really awfully plugged in guitar. I don't know, it's pretty distorted and disorienting, and again, not really my favorite on this track list. Oh Yeah is a short, fairly uninspired digital experiment. It feels like it just kind of accidentally was placed here. It feels like a bunch of incomplete ideas or just things that they wanted to try out, and I don't know, I'm not really sure what to say about this one. Vernon is another track with an apostrophe in the title. This is a instrumental house song with great bass and futuristic, automaton-esque looping, screaming lasers. A stretchy, rubber bandy sounding track titled Indo-Silver Club is actually a great track that kind of fades playfully in and out. It's super perfect for kind of aerobic activity, going for a run or something. Another anthem. This one takes its time filling whatever space you'll allow it. I recommend an in-close headphone listen or a great big speaker system to blow this one out like the big finale that it is. Quite the album, coming in at just under 74 minutes long. Not the worst thing to have, considering the guys have only released 3 other non-live studio albums since this, recording film soundtracks for Tron and appearing in all kinds of other features, digitally and otherwise. These guys have successfully permeated pop culture for the past quarter century. Open about their wide array of musical influences, but not their appearances. Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo and Thomas Bangalte are a tour de force of beats and performance art that continue to inspire a new generation of electronic dance artists. Thanks so much for sticking through my review. If you're new here, this is One Man's Tracks, a place where I go through thrift shops, garage sales, try to find fun, interesting music that I want to know more about, or I don't know anything about, or maybe it's just a one-hit wonder I need to complain about. Either way, I've got a ton more videos over here. You can subscribe, and I'll be back next week, and hopefully see you there. Take care. Around the world, 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 around the world. Can I get out of frame? The cat on.